you said that you saw it last night, and you didn't get to read the script. So you've worked on 2 projects now that are very secretive about unfolding the story or telling the story to their actors. How does that affect how you work on something?
I've really sort of grown to love it in a sense. Well, when you have material as rich as what I got to work with on Lost and then naturally on The Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, then you're working with such extraordinary material and great visionaries, both, in Lindelof and Carlton Cuse and obviously in Nolan, that it forces you to put your trust in the writer and the director, which is the ultimate which is really ultimately what an actor should be doing is getting out of his head or her head and focusing on the moment and on what the environment and the person or people in front of him, and whatever he's doing or she's doing. And the director's there to sort of, you're the puppet and he's a puppeteer. And that's really what acting, in my mind, that's how I was trained, is really don't overthink the whole thing. Don't look at the actual, image of what you're shooting. Just be in it and do and live and be. And trust that your director is going to have your back. And that's so it's really been a great exercise in acting to work that way on Lost and now also with Nolan on Dark Knight.
Interesting. You're in one of the big set pieces here that a number of us have seen. This doesn't give anything away. There's a big thing in an arena and a football team is running around the Rogues. It's in the trailer. So we've seen all this. Yeah. You were there. There were now I assumed that, movie magic, you're in a studio somewhere having shot, but you're not, right? There were 12,000 people there while you were shooting that, right?
There really were, yeah. I think 12 or 13, as someone said, at the Heinz Stadium in Pittsburgh, and I'd never been to Pittsburgh, and what an amazing city. Loved it, and it was just extraordinary to see, people from the town of Pittsburgh really just sort of come and volunteer their time to be part of this.
Well, to be in a Batman movie, yeah.
I know. But when you're going to be this big and you're going to spend that many hours, it's to their credit that they came for several days. Yeah. That whole set piece was a number of days, and then and what they did, as you can see in the trailer, they really tore up that field.
Yeah, well, tell me about being there. Like, did they really tear up that field, or was that added in later?
Oh no, it was torn up. It was a mess, and then 2 weeks later, they were playing on the field. There was grass there like a week after that, because the Pittsburgh Steelers had to. It was like a preseason practice or something. So maybe even short, less than 2 weeks. It was something extraordinary. But it was amazing to see what they'd done to that stadium, and it's a stunning stadium. If you haven't been there, it's a beautiful stadium. It's very new and it's beautiful. And it was an amazing set piece. The other set piece I got to be a part of was I don't think I'm giving anything away. It was in Nottingham Forest,
right,
which was just extraordinary. There's nothing nothing small in that respect. About the scale of it is massive, and visually it's so spectacular. So just about any set you see is extraordinary.
Tell me about how Christopher Nolan is on set, because this movie is epic in every way. I mean, the story is epic. It's shot in IMAX, so you're watching it on the screen the size of a football field. Everything about this is epic, and it all sort of boils down to one guy on the day. So tell me a little bit about his demeanor on set, how he works with his actors, what it's like to work with Christopher Nolan.
It's amazing. It really is. I remember working with him when I worked with him on Dark Knight. I didn't know what to expect because I was a fan of Memento. It was such an extraordinary, groundbreaking film, and I didn't know what to expect. And when I was cast in this, I read for Chris and Emma, Thomas, and I didn't hear for a couple of months. Then I went off to do Lost in Hawaii, and then I got a call while I'm in the jungle from my manager. It's like, hey, are you going to be in the next Batman movie or next Chris Nolan movie? I go, which one? Because it had been so long.
Right.
It was, so when I got on the set, I knew the budget was bigger than anything I'd ever worked on, so it was a little intimidating. But he puts everyone at ease. He's just such a very relaxed guy, and the crew is the same as pretty much the key people from Memento. Right. So it's very conducive to sort of being creative, and he's very subtle, very quiet. Mm-hmm. So. There's no, it's a very quiet set. Right. It's a really quiet set, and very light too. Right. He's always joking with all his key people. They're friends. Right. It's like a giant family now. So and Wally Pfister's, I mean, it just doesn't get better than that. Such an extraordinary director photographer, and what he has done with this franchise, both of them, visually is spectacular.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the stuff that's shot in IMAX, it just is unbelievable looking. It really is unbelievable looking at it. And it's funny because you would think that something that is that big wouldn't have the kind of intimacy that you need to tell this story, but it really does, I think.
It really, and that's to Chris's credit. I mean, again, he's the one who's sort of guiding it emotionally and making sure that it all sort of squares up. You have, like you said, big set pieces, and then you have emotional moments, I think it is. I've never gone out of my way to see a film on IMAX, and having had the opportunity now to see both of these films on IMAX, this is, if you get a chance, if you're near an IMAX theater, this is one you should definitely jump all over.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, if for no other reason, just the shots of Batman at night overlooking the city, but it works way beyond that as well. But
absolutely, yeah. The aerial shots are incredible.
Yeah. And tell me what appearing in these movies has it changed things for you? Does it what has this meant to you?
Well, first of all, the experience is extraordinary. Working with great material, working with such a visionary like Chris, and that in and of itself has been extraordinary. And between this and Lost, both projects have really sort of changed my career, and I'm very grateful for both of them. I mean, to have been a part of Lost and the way that I did it really was meant to be a guest star, and it just sort of grew. And that really opened a lot of doors for me, and certainly Dark Knight has paved the way for other things as well.
Yeah, no, it's really something. I mean, and just the scope of this one, I was really taken with how each character is allowed to have a real emotional arc. Like, this isn't, we've seen a lot of superhero movies, and this, I think, sets itself apart from that by being something different, by allowing each character to make a sacrifice, to experience pain of some sort, whether it's emotional or in some cases physical, or and it really it's almost Shakespearean in that way, which is not something that I would really necessarily associate with a film of this kind.
Absolutely, I think he's turned the genre on its head and really challenged it and said, okay, we're going to make this a psychological thriller, we're going to make this as human a story as we can, and starting with Batman Begins, where you really got into to Batman's history and his emotional. I remember watching that film the first time thinking, this is extraordinary. I didn't know Chris had directed it. Right. And then I'm thinking, wow, I really care about what happened to this guy, and forget about his, theatrics as a superhero. I'm more invested in him emotionally, and the pain of the loss of his, parents. And so so I agree with you. Yeah, he is. He does it in every film. He really sort of gets at the heart of what each character, why they're bleeding internally.
Yeah. Now, this movie, the reviews are out in the world, and they're I think it's still at 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is great. Okay. But Rotten Tomatoes has discontinued taking comments because there was one so-so review, not even a really bad review. Yeah. It's a so-so review, and people were writing in death threats. How do you feel about the fans, of this? And it's such an extreme thing to do, I guess. But Rotten Tomatoes apparently is going to change the way they do business. You're no longer going to be able to make anonymous comments. So you're going to have to hook up through Facebook or something, picture and the name, because people were saying insane things. But that is the how strongly people feel about this.
Wow. Okay. All right. That's kind of frightening.
You're in it. You have nothing to worry about.
No threats on me. All right. I mean, listen. I'm excited for people to see this film. And there is, and it's wonderful to hear how much anticipation there is for the film. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to be a part of it. And but I had no idea about the Rotten Tomatoes.
Well, you can understand why people feel so strongly about it, because these movies do give you a chance to actually get underneath the character.
That's exactly right, and I can see how people get caught up and emotionally in these films. I mean, and the last one was so emotional, and what Heath Ledger did with the Joker, no one had ever done anything like that. I mean, it was just such a riveting performance that you can't help but be invested in in the film and in the characters' arcs, and everyone was extraordinary. But what Heath Ledger did really just sort of, it was such an incredible performance, such a sinister take and a compelling take, that you were sucked in and so emotionally invested. And then you wanted to know ultimately what happened to Batman at the end of that film. So there's great anticipation from the cliffhanger from that film. So I can see why there's so much,
Well, and I thought Michael Caine. He brings it in everything he does. But man, in this movie,
Yes.
this movie, his scenes in this movie go places that you don't normally expect a film like this to include.
Absolutely, what Michael Caine does, is extraordinary. I had no idea that Alfred was gonna go there, and I'm so thrilled that he did, and it's wonderful, and I think we'll have to leave it at that.
Absolutely. Well, that's the thing. You don't want to give away any of the pleasures of this film. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes or so, 45, something like that. But it's so packed with moments that as I was writing about it this afternoon, after seeing it this morning and then before coming here, I found myself having to go, wait a second. Wait a damn minute. Just because I know this happened doesn't,
Absolutely, and it's tricky. It's certainly for you guys and for all of us, because you want to at once share how amazing this film is, and on the other hand, you don't want to obviously don't want to spoil anything. The one thing I will say is I was blown away by Hans Zimmer's score, and it packs such a punch, especially in that last third act. That it's just it just supports the story in the best way, and it kind of gave me chills. The last 10 or 15 minutes with that score roaring, it was extraordinary.
Now, having just seen the whole movie yesterday, were you surprised at the timeliness of the script? I know it was shot while the Occupy movements were happening, but the script was presumably written, much before that. And when Selina Kyle's character says, soon you and your friends will learn that you can't treat the rest of us this way, and then we'll rise up and that sort of thing. That's not the quote, but she says something like that. I thought, wow, this is ripped from the headlines almost.
Yeah, it was sort of kind of an extraordinary coincidence, because it must have been. Like you said, it would have been written before. It was, and you're right. It was interesting. This is no secret, because I know Chris. They talked about that when they were shooting in New York. That's when that was Occupy Wall Street movement was at its peak. Yeah. So it was just it was a coincidence. Yeah.
Now that they've wrapped, the movies are done with Christopher Nolan and Christian Bale. Anyway, what memory, when you look back 20 years from now, what memory will you take away from the whole Dark Knight saga for you?
Oh, there's so many. If I can pick one, I think there's one in particular. I remember in the Dark Knight, in the first one, I had to do. I remember reading in the script or in my pages at the time that I had to give a speech. And it was the financial district. This is when the Joker takes a shot at me, and I knew there was going to be a lot of people. I didn't know how many. But there, on the script, there was only like 1 or 2 lines, and I figured, and there's a lot of action going on. I go, I'll have to be vamping while this action goes on. So I just decided to write my own little speech, figuring, I'll just fill in here and whatever. So I was doing another show in LA at the time, and then I fly into Chicago to shoot this, and then in the hotel the morning of, I get the speech, and I go, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I got to memorize this, or I got to get this thing down. And then I found out also that there were going to be 1,200 extras out there. I go, oh, this is insane. But the memory I'll take away from that is getting on the podium. And of course I had cue cards, so to refer to if I needed him. But I really wanted just to be familiar with it. And just seeing Chris in the crowd, he's got a little video monitor where he works. So he's seeing the image. He'll check in with you as well. And then just seeing there, and I think on one take, I went up or something. And I just remember him looking up and saying, Nestor, it's just me. I go, oh, of course, thanks. And it was just a very comforting thing, in the sea of 1,200 people, to know that your director was there and he had your back. And it was just great. It was a great moment.